Hello everyone, I'm Fang Bo. In this lesson, I'll teach you how to power loop half-long shots. Previously, we talked about how to slow loop half-long balls. This time, we'll increase the difficulty. Which shots should be power looped in half-long situations? In previous lessons on half-long shots, we discussed slow loop the ball from a more upward angle, so we can generate force and add spin. But what's the key to power looping a half-long shot? Your hand must be above the table. When should you choose to power loop a half-long ball? It's usually when the ball is relatively high. The ball hasn't fully bounced out of the table, but you can still attack from above the table. With lower balls, you can still adjust and keep your hand above the table to loop. However, that requires more skill. You might easily hit the edge of the table. I suggest starting with higher balls for practice, and then gradually lowering the height. Now I'll demonstrate a couple of examples. This shot isn't long, just barely past the edge of the table, but it's relatively high. My backswing is all above the table. Here's a backswing movement. Pay attention to it. As the ball comes over, my backswing is always above the table. If I backswing below the table, I won't get enough power. Take a look. I can only add arc to the ball, but there's no way to generate much speed. Let's look again. And I also have to wait for the ball to fall before looping it. But if I raise my hand, I can hit the ball right as it rises. I can attack the shot at the highest point. Got it? So the key to looping half-long shot is your hand must be held high. Now let me try a more challenging example. This ball is lower. Take a look. This one is relatively low. See it? I still kept my hand high, but I adjusted my racket angle slightly, pressing the racket down a little more. I'm looping very close to the table. If I raise the racket angle too much, I might hit the table. If the racket is open too much, it could hit here. But if I keep it lower, I can loop close to the table. So pay attention to your racket angle. With high balls, you can hit forward aggressively, but with lower balls, we combine impact and brushing. Slightly press the racket. Still, the hand must not hook. We must keep the racket face open when looping. If the hand hooks, we might hit the table. The racket cannot be pressed either, unless you loop the ball like this. You need to keep the racket slightly outward. Then we can loop freely. Everyone take a look. This shot didn't come off the table. It's a complete short shot. I can still loop it. Look at me outward the racket. Did you see? I opened the racket face. I can still loop the ball. Lower the serve. See that? If my hand were hooked, I couldn't loop even a half-long shot. So remember, what's the key to attacking a half-long shot? We must keep the racket outward. All shots, unless they are very high, we add a bit of a hooked hand, adding some arc, it is fine. But when the shot stays close to the table, we must keep outward. So do I loop cross-court and loop straight. Take a look. Look at my racket angle. Look, it's the same when I loop that side. As you can see, this shot is very low, but my movement is still above the table. I looped it like this. Why is that? The reason I can hit the ball on the table, because I keep my racket outward, and it's relatively angled downward. Don't open the racket face. When looping a half-long shot like this, you don't need to add arc. Just hit forward. Then I suggest practicing it little by little. Start by looping the ball at its highest point. Gradually lower it until the shot is almost touching the table. Practice it step by step. You will be able to loop just like I do.